Okay, so let me turn off one light. I did talk about all of this. If Johnny has a pond that is fishes, how about that? Fishes, plural of fish, different species of fish, are dying, then what could be the problem? Could be a lot of things, but the one that you're familiar with is monogenia, and they are parasite cause infestation. We talked about all of that. And then one species that you should know, we do not have it in the lab, is Gyrodactylus cylindriformis. Okay, you know about that. Okay, let's go to tapeworms. We finished that one up. Let's go to tapeworms, class Cestoda. For Platyhelminthes, for phylum Platyhelminthes, how many different classes you should know? Anybody? Turbellaria. What else? Cestodes, right here. Trematodes. And one more. I just talked about it. No. The monogenea is another class you should know. You know, I know they break it down to subclass, but for our purposes, let's consider it as a class. Okay.
What about diagenea?
Diagenea is a subclass of, see, some textbooks, again, they classify that as a class as well. Which textbook you are going to go with, what you are going to do. But for our purposes, let's say monogenea is also a class, not a subclass. Okay. But again, some textbooks, that's why I put it as a subclass. Some textbooks say this is a subclass. Cestodes. Okay, tapeworms, common name for the class is tapeworm. Okay, three major parts: scolex, which is the attachment portion of the attaches the gut of the host. If I ask you what is the function in the lab practical exam or quiz or lecture exam, the scolex has suckers, hooks for attachment. The neck region is asexual reproduction or germinative zone. Another name for the neck area is germinative zone, like germination. Okay, they call it germinative zone. And strobila is the chain of the proglottis. When we talk about the strobila at the posterior end of the animal, this is the scolex. You remember I did draw it if they have hooks, suckers, okay? And this is the neck region, right? Asexual reproduction, germinative zone here. Germinative zone. Okay, then you have the mature and immature proglottids. These are proglottids, right? Am I making some sense? The mature proglottids and gravid proglottids. They do not have a separate name. It just, all of this is called strobila, portion of the animal. But you can break them down as mature and gravid. No digestive system. Unlike the rest of your Platyhelminthes, they do not have a digestive system. The rest of Platyhelminthes, they have digestive system. As you saw with your planaria, you experiment with your planaria, and today you're going to present it. They have digestive system, but these guys, they don't. So how do you think they obtain their food from? Through their tegument. Is that right? Through their tegument. So their food is absorbed through their tegument. Nearly all are monoecious, hermaphroditic. They are all hermaphroditic, monoecious. Okay, tapeworms, gross anatomy. Gross, it means big picture. Scolex or holdfast may contain a rostellum. Rostellum is the elevation in the scolex is called rostellum. The elevation in scolex is called rostellum. And I hope for the lab purposes, we do have some tapeworms that, yes, we have it. It's tinea. You look at it and you will start. Germinative zone, I wrote it. Okay, adults invertebrate. Usually the adult of these organisms are in vertebrate animals. Is that right? I didn't make up English language. Is that right? Invertebrate, in vertebrates. You all know what I'm talking about. I hope I'm making some sense. Okay. Oh, wait, intermediate hosts are invertebrates. And if they have it, if they have intermediate hosts, not all species have them. Okay, if they have it, cross-fertilization possible. As I said, most tapeworms they have only, if you have a tapeworm in your gut, you only have one. You don't have two to do the cross-fertilization. Unlike your flukes. The flukes you have two of them and they do cross-fertilization. I hope I'm making some sense. But these guys, you only have one and they self-fertilize, okay? Usually do not harm their host. Most species, all of the species on planet Earth, the animals, they have some kind of tapeworm. Cockroach has a tapeworm. Snakes have a tapeworm. We don't get their tapeworm, but they usually, generally, these are all, could be essay or multiple choice question. Usually, generally, they do not harm their host. The ones that we are going to talk about today are the ones that do harm human, except one of them. Tinea saginata does not harm human, but the rest of them, Tinea paciformis, for example, another tapeworm of human, do not harm human. I mean, I don't know, you've heard that some people take tapeworm to lose weight because it competes with your food. I do not recommend it. You've never heard of that, Sarah Beth, huh? You never heard? But yeah, it's in news. You open up in the internet and I talk about it. Don't do it, please. Nobody, I don't say you, but nobody do it. You take tapeworm in order to lose weight. They compete with your food. It's not recommended, but anyhow, but they do not harm you. In general, they are not harmful, tapeworms. Okay, here's the anatomy of it. Here's the scolex. I talked about it. I better put a ruler so the video catches. Here's scolex. Now, if again, remember, some species have hooks, some don't. Doesn't mean that they have both hooks and suckers. Okay, some species have suckers. They do not have hook. And what is the function of it? Attached to the intestine. Do you remember that picture? Good old picture. What is that? Anybody?
The stomach?
Very good. The villus of the intestine. The villus of intestine, and they are attaching. You remember those? We talked about it first exam material, and then right here. Okay. Anyhow, the scolex right up there, and then immature or germinative zone, and then this part in the middle of the animal, it is mature proglottids and mature. This is called a proglottids. Okay. The mature proglottids have testes, sperm duct, genital pore where the eggs get out. And then vagina, uterus, shell glands, yolk sac, ovary, excretory duct, and nerve. All of these structures are visible in your model. You have it in your model, but on a slide, we'll go over that today. We'll see what is visible. Most likely your yolk gland is visible, ovaries are visible, testes are visible, uterus. We should be able to recognize that, and of course, genital pore is visible. Then, when you get toward the end of the animal, right here, the uterus becomes full of eggs, and that is called gravid proglottids or ripe proglottids. That is called ripe, and this is the one that gets cut off and get out in the feces of the host, whoever host that is. This will get off, but it has to go through the mature zone. And remember, this germinative zone is like an assembly line. It puts out the new segments. It puts out new segments, and by the time it gets in the middle of the animal, they're mature. By the time they get to the posterior, the end of the animal, it is gravid or ripe proglottids. Okay, so right there, now you know what is the difference between gravid proglottids or ripe, I put it in parentheses, and mature proglottids. And of course, germinative zone, right here, you will not see any of these in there, in germinative zone. Okay, the first species. I talked about enough of general characteristics of tapeworms. Let's talk about the first species. Tinea saginata, human tapeworm, does not cause us harm. It just competes with our food. It's their share of the food, okay? Cysticercus is found, the juvenile, the larval stage of tapeworms in general is called, it depends on the species again. You will see another one called hydatid cyst. But Cysticercus in beef, that's when we human, it is in the United States. Tinea saginata is one of those tapeworms that exists in the United States. It's not like you cannot say, oh, it's not in the United States, but it is in the United States. So cysticercus in beef, scolex has 4 suckers and no hooks. It has no hooks. So as I said before, you will see Tinea solium, that Tinea solium has hooks. The difference between solium and saginata. Excretory duct has flame cells, and what is the function of flame cells, anybody? Part of excretory system, get rid of waste. And life cycle in cattle, egg becomes oncosphere, oncosphere becomes bladder worm, or cysticercus. Cysticerci is the plural, and cysticerci becomes adult and shed egg, of course, in human. Let's look at the life cycle. I hope the picture, here we go, great. This is from your textbook. Here is, if you eat, let's start, it's a life cycle, so it doesn't matter where I start. Let's start with beef. If you eat a raw beef, and only beef, Tinea saginata, it's in beef. If you eat raw beef, and you have the invagination of cysticercus, do you remember I said I cannot remember, it was during lecture, I cannot remember what is it that they condemn the whole animal in USDA. If they see this in the meat, they see white circles, probably this big or a little bit smaller, they can become this big. If they see it in the carcass during the meat packing plants, they condemn the whole animal. They can cut it off. They can cut this off from the meat, and then the rest of the animal can go to the food chain to eat it, but they condemn it. They condemn the whole animal. They don't condemn the herd or anything like that. There are other there are other organisms I will talk about later on, not this exam. They condemn the whole herd. The whole herd cannot enter the food. But this one, cysticercus in the beef, even though you cook it, you get rid of it, it does not harm, well, it does harm you, but if you cook it, and it will destroy it. But anyhow, if you eat beef that is not cooked very well, you eat steak, right in the middle of it is not cooked well, right? Am I making some sense? Right here, cysticercus. We eat it inside of our intestine, or our small intestine, the organism, this becomes adult tapeworm, one tapeworm, not 2 of them, not male and female. And then the gravid proglottids are shed in our feces, human feces. And then, of course, the cow has to be there. We poop in the pasture, right? If we go to an outhouse, the life cycle is not going to complete. We have to poop in the pasture, and the eggs will break out of the gravid proglottids. Cow comes and eat that. Of course, the eggs are in the pasture, on the grass, and then inside of the cow, the cysticercus will develop, and we human eat that. Then the life cycle is complete. Okay, I hope I'm making some sense. Here we go again. That's another picture of the life cycle. I'll put it for you. It's showing the cysticercus in the beef, and here is a real picture of it. Right here is the real picture of. If you don't have to know this. You're not taking parasitology, but at UOP I used to ask the students to know the difference between Tinea saginata and Tinea solium. The difference between Tinea saginata and Tinea solium, saginata, if you look at the gravid proglottids or right proglottids, it has 12 branches or more. If you look at it, this is more than 12 branches. Then you know I have Tinea saginata. Okay, but you guys don't have to worry about it. If I show you that, you write down the name of the genus Tinea, and I'm happy for lab practical purposes. Okay, there are differences between, as far as physical appearance of Tinea saginata and Tinea solium. Here we go. Tinea solium. There are differences. I talked about one of them. Tinea solium has hooks and suckers, but Tinea saginata does not. Okay, and we do have a model that shows that. Let me bring it up. So right here, this model is showing you the top one is Tinea solium, scolex of Tinea solium, and the bottom one is Tinea saginata. Hooks, suckers, 4 of them. Only suckers, right? And then of course the rest of the anatomy of it is pretty much the same except the gravid proglottids. The gravid proglottids, saginata has 12 branches or so, but sodium does. Sodium has less than 12, 7 to 12, anywhere in that neighborhood. Okay, adult in human and juvenile in pork, that's usually the case. That's supposed to be the case, just like tiniosodium, adult in human and juvenile in pork. However, this is found in the United States as well. Your essay questions, remember that. This is found in the United States as well. It's not like some of those parasites like schistosoma, we don't have it in the United States, but we have dermatitis. But again, this one is found in the United States. But this is one of those odd cases that if we human come across the egg and the egg inside of us becomes juvenile, the egg, that was not possible for Tinea saginata, but the egg in human becomes juvenile. This juvenile stage, the egg, we ingest the egg accidentally from pork, from pigs, okay? Then what happens, the cystic circus in human also possible. What is impossible, the most dangerous place it can go is in the brain. When it goes in the brain, I have a picture to show you guys. When it goes into the brain, then it calls cerebral cysticercosis. And what can happen? There is no medication. Surgery is not possible. Most likely the person will die. Okay, so those are in cases that with tiniosodium. Rostellum scolex has both suckers and hooks. I just showed it to you guys. And this is the picture that tiniosodium, these are all cerebral cysticercosis. Many of them, no drugs. The person will develop some kind of seizure at the beginning, and then, of course, you take it to the doctor. They took MRI or X-ray, whatever diagnostic tool the doctor decides, and then you come up with these nodules in the brain. This is cysticercus in the brain, so they call it cerebral cysticercosis. I don't know, you guys watch that show, what is it, that doctor, unusual cases? Huh? House, yes, Dr. House. Sometimes in there you see these cases, toxoplasmogonium and other things you see. Yes, Alex?
Symptom-wise, how would you know you had it?
Seizures.
Seizures, oh, okay.
You start with seizures, headache seizures. You start having them. You never had history of seizure in your life before, and that's how you start. Then you go to a doctor. Of course, if the doctor took zoology at Delta College, knows what to do, right? You never learn these in medical schools, right? Well, you do maybe in 1 minute or two. Right? We talked about it. Okay, Diphyllobothrum latum, the next tapeworm. Again, human get it. Common, not common, exists in the United States. It competes with vitamin B12. So you have the adult tapeworm, and you get it from eating. I didn't talk about life cycle, I guess. Okay, you get this by eating raw fish. If you cook it, you get rid of the cysticercus, the equivalent to cysticercus. You get rid of it by cooking meat of fish. This parasite is found around Great Lakes area. Okay, they are saying it did not exist in the United States. It was brought over by settlers. I don't know. I wasn't here during that time. But anyhow, when it competes with vitamin B12, I think I talked about it maybe in the afternoon lab, I can't remember. Vitamin B12 is needed for your red blood cells development. Okay, so you need vitamin B12. If there is lack of vitamin B12 while in your bone marrow, your red blood cells are being synthesized, being made, and there is no vitamin B12, so they turn to a larger type of red blood cells, and that's what they call it, megaloblastic red blood cells, huge red blood cells. They do not pass through your capillaries. If you stain them on the microscope, you have looked at red blood cells in here on the microscopes, they do not pick up the stain, they're lighter stain. They do pick up the stain, but not as much. And they're lighter stain, then the doctor would know you have megaloblastic anemia. Or another name for this pernicious anemia, the person is lethargic, tired. You gotta go in there and kill the parasite, of course, there are drugs. All of these parasites that I talked about, schistosoma, tapeworm, whatever we talked about, there is drug available for them, except the one that I talked about, cerebral cysticercosis. There is no drug for that one. Yes?
So this just gets you tired, but it won't kill you.
No, yes. You will get tired, and remember, there is only one tapeworm in the gut. There is not a whole bunch of them, no matter how much raw fish you eat. You still have one, okay? Again, that's another amazing thing. We don't know. You can do your PhD on it. How come with tapeworm, if we are infected, they're doing that research right now. If you're infected with one tapeworm and you eat raw fish or you eat more of tapeworms, you will not have two. Why is that? That's not true with flukes. Remember that? With flukes, we talked about it. You eat them more, then the population becomes more in the gut. Not these guys. So yes, it competes with vitamin B12 and you're lethargic, you're tired, and if you go to a doctor and say, hey, check me for pernicious anemia, he might listen to you, he might not. But anyhow, I don't know, it depends. If he went to Delta College, of course, he will listen to you. He has zoology, he will listen to you and he will check you for vitamin B12. Here is the scolex. So I said, and then we human shed the egg. The egg goes to the body of water, and the fish will eat the meristerium. And then in the fish, the muscles of the fish becomes cysticercus. Here is the scolex. You do have a slide of it for a slide collection. That is, they have two longitudinal grooves. They call that. It's different than scolex of other species that you have in the lab. So this is Diphyllobothrum latum scolex, and it causes pernicious anemia. Echinococcus granulosus. This is not human tapeworm. This is wild carnivores, dogs, cats, tapeworm. But if we human come in contact with it accidentally, then Houston. You watch Apollo 13. Houston, you got a problem. Okay, so let's go over it quickly. The name of the cysticercus equivalent to this is called unilocular hydatid cyst. That's what it's called, unilocular. It's not called cysticercus, it's called unilocular hydatid. Found in dogs and other canine, I talked about that. Human is the intermediate host. Of course, other canine, this tapeworm does not harm dogs as much and other canine. But if other mice, let's say mice, eat it, or other animals eat it that carnivores like canine eat them, then the life cycle is completed. It's called sylvatic life cycle. Sylvatic life cycle is a life cycle that is completed in wild. Canine and whatever canine eat. So the life cycle is completed in wild. But if we human come across it, then, as I said, human, we got a problem. I mean, Houston, we got a problem. Okay, found in dogs and other canine, human is intermediate host. Cysticercus is called hydatid cyst. And list 4 differences. Yes, I would like you to come up. You didn't come up with the answer for the other 2 questions that I proposed. Is that right? The difference between hydra and the rest of hydrozoa. Remember 4 or 5 I asked? And add that to your list of questions. I would like you to know, what are the adaptations that tapeworm are different? They came up and they're so successful. Tapeworms are the most successful platyhelminthes that we study. Number 1, first answer to that is they do not harm their host. And we talked about that. Parasites that harm their host, what that is. Okay, the host will die. So the symbiont, the parasite will die. But these guys do not harm their host in general. Yes?
If they don't harm their host, does that mean they're commensals? They're not parasites?
No. We do not consider them as a commensal. We still consider them as a parasite. They compete with your food. Okay? It's not like they do not harm you. What am I saying? They do not harm you. They do not kill you. They do not shorten your life expectancy and so on and so forth. You won't even know you have it. You won't even know. Okay? Even subclinical, we talked about that terminology before. Not even subclinical science. Okay? So they do not, in general, that's one of the reasons they are successful, because they do not harm their host. In general. Okay? You've seen a few that they do harm their host. Tinea solium harm their host. Diphyllobothrum latum, Echinococcus granulosus, of course, it harms us here. Here is this person. Look at this. This is what happens. The hydatid cyst in this person can become as big as a basketball. What happens, how does this person got it? For example, I'm giving you a scenario, and I give you a couple more scenarios. They petted a dog or cat, okay? When they petted the dog or cat, their hands had the eggs of Echinococcus granulosus, and they put that in their mouth, okay? One egg, one adult. Am I making some sense on these guys? Unlike your trematodes. So that one egg, it goes to the intestine or brain or any other parts of the body. And in case it goes to the intestine, it can become as big as a basketball. Okay, it's possible it can go to the brain as well, but it does not become a basketball. It kills the person before it becomes a basketball. This is doable. You can get rid of this, not by drugs. There is no drug available. The only thing that can be done is by surgery. Here is a surgery table, and this person has several of them. I don't know, maybe I should come off the, but you have this in your PowerPoint. He has several of them, and then of course, if this bursts open during surgery, the person will die because of the fluid that the hooks, if you would, the larval stage, we call it hydatid cyst. The larval stage are here. There are probably thousands of them in each one of these larval stage. And then what happens if during the surgery, the surgeon is not careful or something happens, this bag bursts, then the person will have anaphylactic shock and will die on the surgery table. So you need, if a person, God forbid, have come across this, you need a skilled surgeon, somebody who does not have too much coffee like me in the morning and his hand doesn't shake. Hopefully you perform the surgery in the morning. We talked about this. Is that right, Larry? If you come across, not you, you become a doctor someday and you come across it, you want to recommend it to the surgeon, or if you're doing the surgery, you want to do it in the morning. In the morning. So you don't shake too much like me. Yes?
Where's it from?
What is it what?
Where's granulosis from?
All over. United States, cosmopolitan. Europe, Africa, everywhere. This is found in the United States as well. It's not only to a region, it's all over. Is there any other question about the echinococcus? We humans are not the normal host. Maybe that's why we react to it so severely. Okay, and you do have slide of it. You have slide of hydatid cyst of echinococcus. Here is one in the brain. Surgery, that's the only route. The only thing to do is surgery. Okay, Diploidium caninum. Another one that does not harm human. Friendly, if you would, friendly tapeworm, both for human and for dogs, cats. One semester, it's called dog tapeworm. One semester, one student was arguing with me. She was working for a veterinarian. She said, Amir, I know better. I said, yes, you do. I don't argue with students. That's my policy. Yes, you do. I work for a veterinarian. I know this. This is only found in dogs. I said, yes, it's found in dogs a lot, but it's found in cats as well. Dogs and cats. The common name is dog tapeworm, but it can be found very rarely, seldom, in cats as well. Okay, so not common in cats, but it can be found in cats as well. Dog tapeworm is the common name for Diploidium caninum. And in children, children can get it, but we adults have a stronger immune system, we will not get it. And the way children can get it is by petting the dog, get the eggs inside, or there are fleas. Did I mention? Yes. There is a flea as an intermediate host, and sometimes children eat the flea accidentally, and the life cycle completes itself. And a lot of times what happens, parents see in the feces of their children, they see these little rice grains, look like rice grains. We have it in the lab. Make sure you look at it. They see little white rice grains, and they take the feces to a doctor and say, Doc, I swear, we never had rice. We don't eat rice in our family. How come well, of course, if you eat rice, it never ends up at the other end as a rice grain, you know that. But how come these are rice grains? And if the doc went to Delta College, is that right? Zoology. Then the doc knows it's a Diploidium caninum. As I said, we adults do not get it, maybe because we have stronger immune system, Like children usually age 4, 5, 6, 7, they get it if you have a pet in the house. And that is recommended. I do not recommend this anymore to put mothball in the vacuum bags to get rid of the cycle. The cycle between dog, flea, and human. Am I making some sense? If you have a pet in the house, they recommend to put mothball. Mothball, it has the chemicals. Again, I do not recommend it anymore. Just take your pet to vet regularly to be dewormed. The common name is deworm. Take care of the flea as well too. So shampoo dog, the cat. There are other things you can do. But mothball, I think it's just too much. The chemicals in it is not very friendly. In old days, in the mothball, old days, they used with DDT. And of course, DDT is banned in the United States. Okay. Here is those rice grains that I was talking about. Look like a barrel. The palladium canino. You have to recognize these for lab practical exam purposes. So these are look like barrel, and we do have slide of this. Let's go over it quickly. The structures. All of these are testes. All of these dots are testes. And then vas deferens, do not worry about it too much. A serous pouch, do not worry about it. Vagina, again, do not worry about it. Ovary and yolk gland, supposed to be right around here. Here we go, petalarium. Petalarium is another name for yolk gland. So those are the structures on your slides. I'm hoping you would be able, of course, genital pore, you have them on both sides. He's calling it serous pouch, but it's just, again, you're not taking parasitology. There's a lot to know, but that's why I'm trying to narrow it down a little bit for you guys. So this is, if I put the pointer here, that's genital pore, and they have two of them, right? One on each side. In tinea, you saw one. On one side, they have genital pore. It's visible, nice, easy to see. Okay, but these are the things that are yolk glands on the bottom of the ovary, and then you have the testes, and so on and so forth. Those are the main structures I'm hoping you would recognize in your slides. Okay, when the gravid or ripe proglottids get out of the animal, this would happen. A student, he ended up going to medical school in Nebraska, a private medical school in Nebraska, but he took zoology here. He said, Amir, on tail of my dog, I have these little rice grains. I said, bring him to the lab. He brought him, of course, I put him in a test tube for you guys for lab practical purposes. And I took one of those little rice grains from the tail of the dog, and I put on a slide, put a drop of water, nothing fancy, very simple. And I put a cover slip on top and squished it. I broke it. And I put them on the microscope, took pictures, here they are. So you see a clump of eggs. When you break these gravid or ripe, these gravid ripe, these are not ripe, these are mature. A gravid ripe proglottids is full of, and you have it over there on your specimen box. When you break it down, these are the eggs. You see they're clumped up together when you break the gravid proglottids. Okay, I think these are the pretty much classification of these guys. You remember this? You had it for protozoa. This is, again, this is not all of your organisms that you're supposed to know for this exam. This is the parasites. We're talking about parasites. I'm not talking about sponges. I'm not talking about jellyfish, cnidarians, hydra. I'm just talking about platyhelminthes. Okay, this is just a handful of them, not handful of them. You have them. This is the old name. They changed it to Tinea saginata now. Make sure during the exam do not die. Tenorhynchus. Tenorhynchus is old name. We didn't talk about Hymenopus stena. Don't worry about that one again. I didn't talk about it. Cause no harm. Just the ones that cause harm. I didn't talk about it. But I talked about one that does not cause harm. That's Tinea saginata. Is that right? Okay. So that's the end of the material for this. Let's go over the lab as fast as we can. Okay, are you guys ready for lab? Yeah. Sure. Let's turn it off. So that way, let's go over the lab material quickly. Have you guys studied this lab material?